What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another altered art tutorial. Today you are looking at all the supplies that I used to alter this old school hurricane that was recently sold at auction on the Commander Cookout Facebook page every Thursday. Check it out. Those are the supplies: paints, brushes, toothpicks. I added Hansa yellow in there. I didn't think I was going to need it, but I ended up needing it. So there it is. Let's kick it off. This is at about 400% speed for most of it, and then the finished product is at the end, of course. So here we go. That's the card that's base coated. There's a coat with marker. There's a coat of black paint around the bottom because I do a fade to black, and I start with just a mix of white and blue and brown, and I just put a quick layer on the bottom. For the most part, this layer is too dark and too blue. There's the Hansa yellow I was talking about. And then I dropped it in the blue paint that I showed you just quick there. With this one, you'll notice that I actually painted quite a far way into the original art. And this old school style of art on this hurricane was done on canvas or on bristleboard. It was done in a traditional medium with paint on some surface, not digitally. So there is noticeable brush strokes, there is noticeable texture from the original art. The altar doesn't have texture and the card doesn't have texture other than its cardstock, but you can tell that the original piece had texture, and there's a couple different ways to achieve that with watered down paint and leaving the paint a little bit, I'll use the word thicker even though it's not. And of course, dry brush glazing or skimming it's called, where you take dry card surface and dry paint on your brush and just skim it gently. And that's what I'm doing when I go into the card. And that's a common blending technique. People think to get like those wispy cloud blowing lines that you need a small brush. No, you need a fat brush that's going to give you a very soft edge when you skim. So right now I got a brand new toothpick. I'm cleaning things up for the first time before I kind of go over everything and finalize the sky. I don't want to lose the text before I do this initial cleanup. And I want to mention that it's very important to know your text, because over the years, Magic has used several different fonts. This font is their original style, and the E is italicized compared to like the type line where it says sorcery. Just an interesting thing. You need to know what the shape of the letters is so you know how to paint them or paint around them or clean within them with your toothpick. So I used my script brush there. Very important to keep that brush wet all the time. That's always a wet on dry type brush. And then I go back to my toothpick, then back to my script brush, back to my toothpick, usually a couple times, but this older school font just seemed to go really well today. But you'll see me go back and forth a couple times, I think, on this mana cost. And you see me reaching over and dipping. That's me dipping right there. That's me dipping my script brush in water. So this is a zero liner or a zero round liner. It's got long bristles. The ends are a little bit round and the size is 0. So it's a little bit smaller. It's for detail work, and I use this brush and the blending brush most frequently. Right now, this would be the functional equivalent of underpainting. If anybody's ever done, portraits or landscapes or traditional painting, this is underpainting. This is blocking in the colors, getting the values correct, and kind of getting a solid color to blend into, because I paint down as far as I think I should on the sides beside the text box, then I blend the black back up. That's how I do my auction pieces. That does make them a little bit more time efficient for me, keeps them a little bit more affordable, so the starting price for the auction piece doesn't have to be outside of people's comfortable like initial bid price range. I hate to say it like that, but I don't want to price anybody out. So if I make the altar a little bit more time efficient or simple for me to produce, it makes it a little bit more affordable for more people, which I think is important. Moving over to the grass, again, this is an underpainting thing. There's a couple layers to grass all the time. There's like that green grass that you look at when you look out into your yard. But if you go outside and stand and look straight down at your feet where the grass is, you'll see that there's another darker layer, and then usually some browns and black earth tone in there as well. So usually I start with that green, I add black around the bottom at the end, and then some highlights. You'll see it all go on. This being a traditional medium piece back from 1992 probably when this was painted, it is far less detailed. They paid their artists way less, right? So the piece didn't have to be as detailed as even like the 10th edition Hurricane is or modern art is. So that's not to take anything away from the altar or the extension, but or the art itself. It's just, I guess, a point of reference that I wanted to make and wanted to showcase this, because if you wanted to do your own Hurricane with this art, it is a relatively simple art extension. Browns, blacks, blues are typically fairly forgiving colors to blend if you're using your wide, soft blending brush. So I wanted to demonstrate that. Now you can see me go into the darker colors at the base of that grass. And now this is how I blend my bottom. I actually just layer some black on there pretty thick, and then I dab it with my finger to kind of just like smudge it up. That's one way to do it. It's a fast way to do it. You can also take that same brush, that wide brush that I blended the sky with, and you can blend that black that way. But it's important to go back to your black and blend up with your color, not taking that medium yellow brown and blending down. That won't look as good. On to the actual water there. You'll see by the end my pile of paint that I'm mixing out of there gets progressively more brown. On pretty much every altar tutorial I've done so far, I say I go through so much brown. I use it for everything, in the skies, in the blues, in the grounds, in the trees, and everything has brown in it. Everything. It's used to create distance. It's used to decrease the value of your black. It's used to create atmosphere in between your eye and whatever thing you're looking at in the distance. You can see how brown it is now, and my water there still looks too blue. After the video was done, I set the card up and I looked at it some more, and I made that water even more brown. So it looks okay now, but I made it more brown, and I wanted to make a point to say that because you need brown for everything. Burnt sienna and burnt umber are your best friends. So there's a little bit of line work here and a little bit of cleanup around the type line. The edges of old green cards, I'm going to do that next, are really easy because they're really uneven, and you kind of just scrape until you see the edge of the card, and then that's it. It's good. The top, I use a straight line or a straight edge. I should note that I switched to a duller toothpick, one that I've used a bunch, one that's been wet a bunch of times, so the end of it isn't as sharp. On these really old cards, I find that a really sharp toothpick, like the one I switched back to do this, I find a really sharp toothpick can damage the cardstock a little bit easier. So when I scrape paint in mass like I'm doing right now, and on this side right here, I scrape with a duller toothpick. Just FYI. You don't want to be fixing cardstock with paint. It's never as high of quality when you do that. But some final cleanup. I look at it, I kind of rub all the scrape paint off. I paint a little tree in here because I noticed that there was kind of half a tree sticking up that I wanted to not just leave a tree stump. So this was a little bit of an afterthought that I kind of just missed when I was doing the rest of the card. That happens all the time. That's why it's important to work in and around and through your painting, not just kind of from left to right. You got to work the whole painting to make the whole thing feel very natural. That gets painted in. I blend the tree I paint with some of the same color as other trees. I do some very dry brush kind of wind blowing speed line type things to make the wind look like it's blowing. And here it is, the final product. I really like how it turned out. Again, I made that water a little bit more brown, and it sold at auction. I hope everybody liked the video. Big thank you to the patrons. Link in the show notes below. Check out the rest of the playlists and content both on YouTube or wherever you download your Magic the Gathering or Commander podcasts. See you guys next time.